If I said ever, that would be really bad because, you know. All right, yes, so we're talking about the Ottoman government today with sultans being the top of the chain. Now, the Ottomans were typically, especially in the beginning, considered good at governing and were often cheaper in their taxes than the Byzantine Empire. So people were pretty happy when the Ottoman Empire would come through, particularly because they had a lot of religious tolerance as well. Whereas the Byzantines weren't so great with that. They pretty much wanted you to be Orthodox Christian, although they were not the worst. Now, although the Sultan was an absolute monarch and had the total power, the real head of the state was a person called the Vizier. The Grand Vizier is going to wind up being the assistant to the Sultan, is going to have tremendous power. And what's amazing, though, is like we see how, you know, the Ottomans, they promoted based on merit, you know, their talent, their skills. And if they had the skills, it didn't matter if you were even a slave at birth. You could go and elevate yourself all the way up to Grand Vizier. You know, we've got Ibrahim Idrim Pasha. He was a Greek, so, you know, born a Christian. He was a slave, and he becomes Grand Vizier. Ibrahim is actually a very popular name, and we're going to have several Grand Viziers with that name, actually, kind of ironically. And here's the thing, though. We talked about this yesterday. The political succession was hard to tell, all because Suleiman fell in love with Roxolana and listened to her about having her son become the next sultan. So like we said, we have sons going battling and killinging each other to get the power. And it's very sad. Like, I can't imagine growing up, you know, I have an older brother and thinking, well, it's either going to be him or me, you know. And of course, these guys, they would have lots of brothers because the Sultan, one of his main jobs is to secure an heir. So, government, main things to get from this: Sultan in charge, Grand Vizier, really the head of state, promotions based on merit. That's what you gotta know. All right, guys? All right, and let's just admire the beauty of this hat. Oh, yeah. Nita is like, I've got a hat like that. Now, let's look at the Ottoman religious policy here. So the Ottomans were Sunni Muslims. And it's going to be one of the things that's going to unite the conquered peoples. And many of the people are going to be Sunni Muslim, or will actually convert to Sunni Islam throughout the time of the Ottoman Empire. Churches such as the Hagia Sophia and many others were often converted into mosques, although they were tolerant of Christians and Jews. Like we said with Sultan Mehmet II, he welcomed Jews to come from Europe to avoid persecution to the new city of Istanbul. And Christians and Jews, they just had to pay what was called the jizya, which was a special tax allowing them to live in their millets, and they could go and, you know, keep their faith. And as we talked about the millets, they had their own schools, their own government, even some of their own taxes. I mean, they had their own functioning communities that were just part of the Ottoman Empire. I just love how with the Ottoman Empire, it's, you know, it's so recent that like literally we can see photographs from it. Tomorrow, I was thinking of showing you part of a silent film that actually shows the Ottoman Empire, like a film, like actual video of these guys. I mean, it's out of our time period, but I mean, that's so cool. That like real, like we're talking about things that happened so recently. And so this is what their social pyramid would look like with this. So we're going to have the top is the Ottomans, so this shaded area. And so we can see that the Ottomans were actually considered a relatively small proportion of the population. We've got the Sultan and Grand Vizier on top, which really he should be listed up here. We see the majority of the people were Muslims. However, there was a fair amount of Christians and Jews living within the society. And all of the people that were not considered Ottomans were the Rhea, the protected flock, those that are going and really the Ottomans see themselves as keeping over, as shepherds to their people, which I think is pretty admirable for it. You don't have to copy this chart down or anything, though. Don't worry about that. I'm sure some of you are like, oh man, I already did. Or I'm halfway through. All right. Let's talk about the Janissaries a wee bit. So Janissaries, they are going to be the elite soldiers of the Ottoman Empire. These are just different Janissary uniforms throughout time and different levels of equipment. And as we talked about, they were taken as young boys to join the Ottoman military. They were taken, they were made eunuchs, and they wound up getting the best education. They wound up getting the best military equipment. Originally, this was something that mothers would hide their sons from, but then eventually it became considered an honor to have your child taken, particularly because the mothers knew that their lives would be so much better because they would get, all the food they needed, get the best education, get the best of everything. And later on, a lot of these times, the Janissaries, they would come back to their old towns, very powerful, very prosperous, and they would help the old towns, their old towns, because they wouldn't forget where they're from. It's not like they were taken and they were never allowed to contact their parents again or anything like that. So these Janissaries wind up often running a lot of the things in the Ottoman Empire. And eventually it's going to become a similar situation as the Praetorian Guard in Rome did, whereas these Janissaries are at times going to be essentially choosing the next sultan, whoever would be best for them. They're considered the elite soldiers, but there'll be times where they flat out tell the sultan saying, you got to be crazy. We're not going to actually go do that fighting right there. You send in the regular soldiers, and then we'll come in after and clean it up, because they wanted to, not be, not be in danger. So we're going to see the Janissaries becoming a huge political force within the Ottoman Empire, but they're a very interesting group. We can see that they too had awesome hats. Always check this one out in the middle there. I mean, it's almost like a crown. And he's like, I'd wear that. I bet you would. You look great in it. All right. And here are some modern Janissaries. Look at that. Fantastic mustaches as well. But all right, that is going to be our notes for the day. I'm going to stop the recording.